The waitress reached out to set down the billionaire's coffee, but her gaze caught the old silver ring on his hand. Her face went pale. The tray trembled. She stared at that ring for several long seconds, then whispered something that made his heart stop cold. "Sir, my mother has a ring exactly like yours." The billionaire looked down slowly at the band he had worn every single day for 30 years. It was not an expensive piece of jewelry, nor a family heirloom. It was one half of a matching pair he had given to the only woman he had ever truly loved, before life tore them apart. For the first time in decades, his hands began to shake. If you believe that love, forgiveness, and second chances can change lives, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters. 56-year-old billionaire Alexander Whitmore had built one of Europe's largest engineering companies from nearly nothing. Magazine covers praised his success, but no article ever mentioned the quiet sadness that followed him everywhere. 3 decades earlier, before wealth and fame, Alexander had fallen deeply in love with a university student named Evelyn Harper. They had little money and rented a tiny apartment, dreaming of opening a small engineering business together. On the day Alexander received an overseas internship that could transform both their futures, he bought 2 simple silver rings from a neighborhood jeweler. Unable to afford diamonds, he had a tiny compass engraved inside each band along with 2 words, "Always home." He promised Evelyn that no matter where life took them, those rings would always lead them back to one another. Only days later, tragedy struck. His flight was delayed after a devastating earthquake interrupted international travel, and communication systems failed for weeks. By the time he returned home, Evelyn had vanished from her apartment. Neighbors believed she had moved away. Letters were returned unopened. Phone numbers no longer worked. For years, Alexander searched. Eventually, believing she had chosen another life, he buried his heartbreak in work. He never removed the ring. 30 years later, 26-year-old waitress Claire Harper worked afternoons at the elegant Grand Harbor restaurant while helping support her widowed mother. Claire admired old jewelry because her mother always wore one particular silver ring that she refused to take off. Whenever Claire asked about it, her mother simply smiled and said it reminded her that true love sometimes survives even impossible distances. That warm afternoon, Alexander entered the restaurant for a business meeting. As Claire poured his coffee, sunlight reflected off the ring on his hand. Her heart skipped. It looked exactly like her mother's, even the tiny compass engraving matched perfectly. Without thinking, she softly said, "Sir, my mother has a ring exactly like yours." Alexander looked up immediately, his breathing uneven. Very few people had ever seen another ring like his. Trying to remain calm, he gently asked where her mother had gotten it. Claire admitted she did not know. She only knew her mother had worn it for as long as she could remember. Alexander asked one more question. "What is your mother's name?" "Evelyn Harper." The coffee cup slipped from Alexander's fingers and shattered harmlessly onto the carpet. The entire restaurant turned toward the sound. He could not speak. 30 years of unanswered questions suddenly had a name. Claire, confused by his reaction, called her mother to ask if she could come to the restaurant after work. A little over an hour later, Evelyn quietly walked through the front door. Time had added silver to her hair, but Alexander recognized her instantly. She stopped walking. The ring on his hand caught the afternoon sunlight, and she gently touched the matching ring she still wore. Neither of them moved for several seconds. Finally, Evelyn explained what had happened all those years ago. After Alexander left, she learned she was expecting their child. Before she could tell him, the earthquake disrupted communication. At almost the same time, her father became seriously ill in another state, so she relocated to care for him, believing Alexander had accepted a permanent position overseas after every letter she mailed was returned because of temporary postal failures following the disaster. Years passed. Both believed the other had chosen a different life. Neither stopped loving, and neither removed the ring. Claire stood quietly between them, realizing the father her mother had described only through old memories had been standing in front of her all along. Alexander apologized for every year they lost. Evelyn admitted she had made the same painful assumptions. Neither blamed the other. Sometimes life separates people not through betrayal, but through tragic misunderstandings and impossible circumstances. Over the following months, Alexander became part of Claire's life, not by trying to recover lost years overnight, but by patiently earning every new memory they created together. He learned about birthdays he had missed, graduations he never attended, and dreams Claire still hoped to achieve. Claire discovered that the billionaire everyone admired was simply a father grateful for one unexpected second chance. Together, they established the Always Home Foundation, providing travel assistance and communication support for families separated by natural disasters and humanitarian emergencies. Alexander often displayed his ring during foundation events. Whenever someone asked why such a wealthy man wore such a simple piece of silver, he smiled and answered, "Because some promises are worth more than diamonds." Before this story comes to an end, we would love to hear from you. Do you believe true love can survive years of separation when both people never stop believing? Please leave a meaningful comment below, because your story may encourage someone who still believes hope is worth holding on to. As warm afternoon sunlight filled the Foundation's community center years later, Claire watched her parents laughing together while welcoming reunited families through the doors. Alexander gently looked at the old silver ring that had traveled with him through 30 years of loneliness. It had never been a symbol of what he had lost. It had quietly been waiting to become the symbol of everything he found again. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to my channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember, sometimes the smallest ring carries the biggest promise, and love has a remarkable way of finding its way home.